Recording in progress.
Thank you.
What happened? Melissa's trying to log on again, Jamie.
Yep, I'm not waiting.
All right.
Good evening. Welcome to the September 20 meeting of the Conservation Commission. Section 40 of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 allows for the continuation of remote meetings. As such, this meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and is also being broadcast on cable channel 15 and streamed online by FCTV. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. Again, I'd like to thank the staff for their continued support to this commission and their diligence assisting applicants. Makes the whole process much more efficient for all concerned. We are temporarily missing one commissioner. We expect her to come in shortly. However, we have a quorum. We're moving forward. Again, to remind you guys for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time. Please, let's stop from speaking over each other. Also, all votes need to be done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. If you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the Commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project may proceed as proposed. However, a positive determination means that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do in fact apply. Therefore, the project would require a notice of intent application. So as an applicant, you kind of want to hear a negative determination. For the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing, and so that you're not waiting unnecessarily, the following hearings are expected to be continued. 114 Quaker Road, 306 Granton Avenue. First up, request for a continuance under a notice of intent. William F. Solomini Jr., 114 Quaker Road and 0 Quaker Road. Map and parcel number 14-14-001A-002, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, construct a new single-family dwelling, upgrade the existing Title V sewage disposal system, and install mitigation plantings. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until September 27th.
So moved, Harlow Hawks.
Bird second, and I want to know why is this not the second continuance?
They're finalizing their plans, Courtney. We received the architecturals today.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until September 27. Any questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Melissa.
Bartog, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until September 27. Next up, requests for determination of applicability. First up, Angela and Joseph Celia, 95 Glen Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an addition and after the fact permission to install 2 sheds and a patio expand the parking area, remove vegetation from the flood zone and from the Zone B to a wetland, and install a sand court. Ms. Bergeron,
Yes, the applicant's representative has requested a continuance until September 27th.
So moved, Harlow Hawks.
Bird's, second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to continue this till 9:27. Questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Bartel, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this request until September 27th. Next up, Richard and Kaylee Seeley, trustees, Seeley Realty Trust, 39 Old Homestead Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to repave the driveway and install drainage, reconfigure the existing walkways, and construct 2 retaining walls. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harlow Hawks, second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? Seeing none, we're vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Bartel, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, 186 Oyster Pond Road, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to replace an existing pump and reconstruct part of the roof to the pump house. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harlow Hawks, second.
Melissa,
Just a Scribner's correction. It's the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution that perhaps needs to be.
I read what's on the
Okay.
agenda.
I know, that's just, that's a Scribner's record. I'd like to update the agenda for the record. That's all.
All right. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any questions or comments?
No.
All right, we're voting on accepting the staff's recommendation. Betsy,
I'm recusing myself from this, Jamie.
Bird,
should've
aye.
known, sorry.
Bird, aye.
Sure, Courtney. I heard you twice. Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Bartel, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is almost unanimous with one recusal. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you to the staff. Next up, our request for hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public comments are limited to 3 minutes, so I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, John and Judith Raimondi, 25 Beckles Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, and reconstruct the garage. I don't know how you raise them and reconstruct them, but okay. Modify the existing roof dormers and reconstruct 3 entryways. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mike Borselli, I've promoted Mike Borselli as a panelist to present his project.
Jen, are you a little rusty from missing like the last 10 hearings? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, welcome back.
I am.
Mike, you're
Thank
up,
you.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
The applicant has the property at 25 Beckles Road. There's an existing single-family dwelling with attached garage on the property. The property has just under 17,000 square feet of land. To the west of the property is Buzzards Bay. Adjacent to Buzzards Bay is the boundary of land subject to tidal action. We've shown the no disturbance zone A and outer buffer zone B from that. Adjacent to land subject to tidal action is a coastal beach, which runs right to the base of a coastal bank that's on the subject property. The coastal bank is vegetated and stable. We've identified the top of the coastal bank. And we've also identified the 50-foot no disturbance zone A from the top of the bank, which is shown on the plan, and then the outer buffer zone B, which is also 50 feet in width. The existing house is proposed to be renovated, and there's 3 distinct elements to the renovation, and I've color-coded them and circled them in different colors to help hopefully make it simpler to understand. First off is the area circled in orange, which I'm zooming in on, which is the existing garage, rinse station, and a trellis that exists over a patio. That portion of the house is proposed to be raised, R-A-Z-E-D, and reconstructed in the same footprint. The next area of interest is the area circled, or outlined, I should say, in a blue line. And that's the main body of the existing house. They're proposing to alter the roof and modify the existing dormers so that they'll have more space on the second story, more living space on the second story. And the third element is circled in green, or outlined in green. There's 3 existing covered patio entries, and they're open to the elements. They have roof over them, and the roof supported by a post on the corner of each patio. They are proposing to enclose those roofed over patios so that they're entirely enclosed and access will be made through doors. All of the work is proposed within the footprint. There's no expansion beyond the footprint of the existing house. Therefore, there's no requirement for mitigation. The staff did provide me with a staff report. There was a couple of items. Number 1, will the rinse station be reconstructed? Yes, the rinse station, which is adjacent to the garage, will be reconstructed along with the garage in the same footprint. The staff pointed out that under a previous application, there were 3 paver stepping stones that were supposed to be removed when it was reviewed for compliance, and evidently those 3 stones were not removed. And when I say stones, I'm not trying to belittle the significance. They're fairly big. They're probably 12 inches or 18 inches by 48 inches long, blue stone stepping stones. Those were supposed to be removed, and they were not. So the owner has already been instructed that during this project they should be removed and they should not reappear. There was also a comment about some pruning that has been going on in the buffer. Along the top of the coastal bank, there is a masonry wall, and on the seaward side of the masonry wall is the vegetation, a thickly vegetated buffer at the very top of the coastal bank, and evidently there's been some pruning of it's a shrub layer, and there's been some pruning of that shrub layer, and staff is pointing out that that is prohibited unless you get permission. So I've shared the staff report with my client. I highlighted these items and I informed him that he can't do any of that pruning that had been done without permission. And I think that sums it up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Jen,
I have nothing to add. Thank you for addressing those items, Mike. Just again, I know you said just stress to your client that the mitigation should be allowed to grow into its full and mature form.
Absolutely. And it certainly should be a finding or a condition.
Correct. Thank you.
Mrs. Bergeron.
I have no comments. Thank you.
Wow. All right. Commissioner comments. Betsy.
No comments or questions. Thank you.
Wow. Courtney.
No comments.
All right. Mike, you're going to get off easy. Kevin.
Jinx it.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maury.
I just had one question. I know that in the staff report, they were talking about the pavers, if they wanted to keep them to be mitigated for. I just have a funny feeling that, you know, they're going to take them out, but they're going to go back. So would we be better off just to ask for some mitigation for those and just show it somewhere on the plan? I don't know. I mean, it'll be great. They'll take them out for compliance, but they have a purpose, obviously, to walk in and out of the house, and they're probably going to want them back, and they will probably go back. So at least if they're going to go back, we should maybe count them instead of getting rid of them. And I don't know, that's just my opinion. Other than that, no questions.
All right. Melissa.
Oh, Jamie, you jinxed Mike. Yeah, a comment and then a little bit of request. Comment, the staff report mentioned 2 sailboats that were down on the shore, but there was also a kayak tucked in underneath the bottom of the steps going down, and there are beach chairs also on the side, a lot of them. And I don't think that kayak can be stored in the dune under the stairs. So can add the kayak to the question about the 2 sailboats, and it's pretty obvious that the kayak belongs to this household as well as the beach chairs. Jennifer, am I correct in assuming that the planters that are next to the stairs are part of the prior NOI on this property?
I didn't check the planters, Melissa, but I can.
Yeah, because they're awfully nice, but they're sticking out into the bluff, which is interesting.
They were on the as-built plan when the compliance, they were part of the plan. They've been there for a long time. And there was a project prior to this that they've historically, nothing's changed in that area.
Okay.
Since last review.
Okay. And then my only other request is, throughout this whole packet, this whole NOI, nowhere was there a sentence that said proposed project is to do this all in the same footprint. So the whole time I'm in the property, I'm looking for stakes for your little brown dotted lines that are around the garage. I was thinking the whole time that the garage was going to be expanded, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out what I was looking at. And even the guys in the house, they couldn't explain to me what was going on either. So
I don't know that the guys in the house would be qualified to know exactly what was going on, but
yeah,
there's no stakes because there's no expansion. That's basically because there is no room for mitigation.
Yeah, but I realized that now that there's no expansion, but I didn't realize that until I actually read the staff report, because nowhere in the NOI does it say there's no expansion. And on your maps, it says area in orange represents existing garage to be raised and reconstructed, rebuild patio and trellis in the same location, but reconstruction, I don't know if that means exactly the same, or it looked to me like you were going to expand the garage on this plan. So if you could just be a little more clear maybe in the future, because in page A-3 in proposed project, it says, redevelopment is defined as replacement, rehabilitation, or expansion of a legally existing structure. So I just going in there the whole time. I guess I appreciate your separating out the three areas, but ultimately it just confused this little noggin here, which is maybe just post-COVID stuff. So in the future, if there could be in the summary, just a succinct whatever. But thanks. And thanks for the clarification about the planters.
Mhm.
Beautiful site. It's a beautiful
yeah.
location. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, Steve.
No additional questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I do have a comment.
Yes, sir.
It may have been hard to find, and I apologize for that, but in the narrative, under section 3, the proposed work meets the performance standards found at 10.18. The proposed structures and pervious surfaces that cannot support natural vegetation shall not move closer to the wetlands than the existing structure. There is no increase in impervious surfaces as a result of the redevelopment. No mitigation is
Let it go.
required,
Thank you.
as all work is proposed within the existing footprint.
Got it.
Excellent.
Sorry about that.
Thanks.
It's in one little spot, so I apologize.
I'll make
Yeah.
a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
Bless you. All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Anything else? All right, we're voting to close the hearing. Betsy,
Pelter, aye.
Bird eye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Melissa,
Thank you, Mike. Aye. Freitag.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
You as well.
Night, Mike.
Good night.
All right, next up, continued requests for hearing under notice of intent. First up, John Stimson, 51 Homer Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise RAZE an existing single-family dwelling, construct a new single-family dwelling with a garage, patios, and porches, and upgrade the existing sewage disposal system to meet Title V requirements. And the quorum on this one excludes Maury. And Maury, just so you know, you're not on the next two, so a total of 3. So enjoy your lunch break. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Zach Bazinski up from Bracken Engineering to present this continued project. Hello, Zach. How are you?
Good evening. Again, for the record, Zach Basinski, professional engineer, Bracken Engineering, here this evening on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Chairman, may I share my screen at this time?
Yes, sir, you may.
Thank you. So just to recap, existing developed single-family house lot. Existing house was created in 1964, as reviewed at the last hearing. Applicants looking to demo the existing structure, build a new structure on the lot. Previous things to address at the last hearing, we went out, surveyed, added the additional trees onto the property, showed the limit of work going around the property. At the time, we also reviewed with the Board of Health and confirmed that the existing structure is 4 bedrooms. A letter was sent in from the Health Department for that. Additional dry wells were cited onto the plan, and the existing septic system has been upgraded from a conventional septic to a nitrogen reduction septic system, so further enhancing the protection of the resource areas in the area. Question came up regarding an off-site coastal dune, so we have shown that in the associated 100-foot buffer, showing it off locus. And last part was adding mitigation plantings to the site. Based on calculations, we had about a 721 square foot increase in disturbed area on the lot, and we're proposing just over 800 square feet. I believe the commission received an inadvertent plan where we showed 1,800 square feet. That was corrected, and we have brought that back down to 800 square feet. And we're citing this on the lower sides of the lot. So to help mitigate any runoff from the lawn, it will be treated through the proposed mitigation areas on the property. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back over.
Excellent. Thank you, Zach. Ben.
I have no comments at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Just two things. Zach, I know that you emailed me, but we did have one question from an abutter. There was a collection of Phragmites south of the project. You said that you had a team go out there, and what were you able to confirm?
So we had Sebacia Incorporated. They went out, took a look at the abutting lot to it. It looks like most of the species are upland species in the area, so it doesn't qualify as a wetland system. We can't put anything in writing though, just because it's off locus and we didn't have permission, but based on a visual inspection of everything, it looks like it was a disturbed area, so Phragmites can grow in a disturbed area.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
And then just addressing the second staff comment, again, based on outside concerns, and Rob did a great job talking about this the last time, but now that we're seeing where the dry well location is on the plan, and that you've added the trees to the plan, can you confirm that the construction will not undermine that slope and those that tree root system in the backyard?
Yes, and then we can field monitor that too, and we're going to make sure that all the placements of those dry wells won't impact the trees.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner comments. Courtney.
No comments.
All right. Zach, would you clarify the mitigation for me? I think I misheard you on what you have coverage and what you provided.
So we have a zone B on here. There's no zone A. So right now we have an increase in about 800 square feet. So we're proposing, 700 square feet. We're proposing 800 square feet of mitigation planting on the perimeter on the downside of the lot, shown here in green. So it's removing existing lawn area and replant that with native vegetation.
They'd be improvement plantings.
Improvement plantings.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Kevin.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Melissa.
Much improved. Thank you.
All right. Steve.
I have no questions.
All right. Betsy.
No questions. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Jamie.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Gladfelter.
Bird,
Thank you.
second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we're going to vote to close the hearing. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa.
Right, guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed the hearing. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Zach.
everyone. See you at the next one.
Night, Zach.
Good night.
All right. Next up, William F. Solomini Jr., 114 Quaker Road. I'm sorry, I already did this one. Never mind. I know you wanted to hear me read it again, but not
That's
going
okay.
Next up, Melissa McKim, trustee, Nina's Marina Realty Trust, 306 Scranton Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct invasive species management and restoration and a vista prune according to FWR 10.18 10B. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this was a late continuance request and the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 4th.
So
All right.
moved, Patton.
Bartok, second.
Gladfelter, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this until October 4th. Melissa?
Do we know why? Jen?
It was a late continuance request. It probably has to do with the staff comments. So we're going to try to Zoom with the project team so we can explain our concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We're voting on, we have a motion and a second. We're voting on the continuance till October 4th. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have continued this until October 4th. Next up, Robert Murray, trustee, the Murray Family Trust, 2023. 23 Hamlin Point Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a garage, porch addition, and house addition, expand the existing deck and driveway, reconstruct the screen porch, and install restoration plantings. And again, the quorum excludes Maury. Jen?
Excuse me. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Tim, stop laughing at me, Tim Santos up from Merrill Engineering to present his continued project.
Mr. Santos, you're up, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Merrill Engineering representing the applicant. With your permission, I will share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Can everybody see that?
No. Oh,
Yep,
now.
now we can.
Oh, got a little nervous there. So this project was this project was before you a few weeks ago. We reviewed it. It's the proposed addition to the west of the existing home. Proposed reconfiguration of deck in addition to the southeast, and reconfiguration of the driveway with some restoration plantings. At the time, the board had concerns with the location of the limit of work, which previously followed, if you follow my little hand here, followed the railroad ties, and asked that we look at potential reconfiguration of this addition and potentially readjusting the limit of work somehow. So what we've done is we've actually brought this back face of the addition wall away from the buffer by about 2 feet, and we've kind of readjusted the limit of work to the rear of the addition and house, so that at the closest points we'd be about 5 feet off the deck and anywhere from 8 to 10 feet off the house additions. I'm going to show you if I can. Hold on a second. I think I can do it this way. Can you guys see that photo?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, well, previously the limit of work ran along the edge of the railroad tie, like I stated. We've kind of brought it back, and the reason why we brought it back is we felt that, this area right now is kind of covered with ground cover and some saplings. This is where the garage will be constructed. This is another view showing the ground cover and the saplings, and then this final photo shows where the deck would be constructed and kind of ground cover and a few saplings. So we felt at the end of the day that once the construction took place, and then the revegetation of these areas, that the buffer would be more heavily vegetated than what currently existed, and that was a benefit to the resource area buffers. Obviously, I've done work in this town for many years, and I'm well aware of the staff's stance on kind of encroaching into existing buffers, but this is kind of a unique circumstance, so that's why we brought it this way. If that was fully vegetated, I would never have brought it to this board, but we felt that the existing vegetation that exists there is kind of lacking. And again, the proposed vegetation, once it's all said and done, would be more heavily vegetated, and it would provide a improvement to that buffer zone. So that's what was submitted. We also submitted a letter from the architect that kind of discussed how the foundation wall for the garage would be. It's a frost wall 4 feet down, and then we would remove the existing deck, come in on the east side of the house, either dig the sonotubes by hand or a small machine. Any work on the, I'll call it the south side of the house, for siding work would be done with ladders or pump jack staging. So if the board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Thanks, Tim. Jen?
Tim, can you just go over how that zone A is going to be revegetated? Sorry, I grabbed the wrong plan when I left the office today.
Sure.
Like what species you're proposing?
So what we propose is to revegetate these areas in here with arrowwood, 5 feet on center. If the board felt that it should be closer or a different type of species, we'd be more than happy to put something else in that area.
Do you think the arrowwood might be a little big for those areas once it grows to its full and mature form? That's the only thing I would be concerned with, because arrowwood can get kind of big.
I am not a plant expert, so if staff felt that something else is more suitable for that area,
Okay.
more than happy to put another species in there.
Okay. Just to go to the staff comments, we just have to stay consistent where we, don't recommend encroaching into a naturalized buffer zone A for a limit of work. But Tim explained why he is choosing to do that and provide that limit of work for construction. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Bergeron.
No comments. Thank you.
All right. Tim, the garage you pulled away a little bit, but that 10.7 is or 10.7 limit of work is inclusive, is going into the buffer zone, correct?
Yeah, yes. From this corner to the edge of the railroad tie, I believe that's about 5.5 feet. Because I believe
your overdig.
It's a 4-foot dig, so even if you're going at a 45, you wouldn't be encroaching into this area here past the railroad tie.
Okay, and the porch and the deck are all second floor, correct?
This porch right here, the porch in the back.
The garage is on.
The garage is a first floor, correct? This is a first floor. This is second here. This is a screen porch, and this is second. This is all second here. This is all footings.
So any work with this related to the second floor work
would be by hand with sonotubes, correct?
Okay. All right, you can stop sharing. Thank you. So I have two kind of hangups about it. One is, we always go for 10-foot limit of work, so I'd hate to set a precedent. And with what staff said about encroaching into the A zone to create a limit of work. However, the replanting seems like it would be beneficial. So in that regard, I think I'm okay with it. It's just my opinion. All right, continuing with commissioner comments. Kevin.
No additional comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Melissa.
Thank you. Hey, Tim, you mentioned on your plan that the new area, the green area within the limit of work to the west, I guess, of the garage is 323 feet of restoration planting. But you've got a lot of other green bits.
Yep. So
to the south, are you going to restore all of that as well? Because it's not labeled as being restored.
Yep. So there's if you follow my little magic hand here, there's a label here, existing
disturbed to okay.
Restored, and I don't know why it's not shown, but
so that's just the arrowwood.
Yeah, that's
electronically.
Just the arrowwood, correct.
Okay, but then your plans say that arrowwood's going to be 25% of the mitigation area, but
no. So that's the restoration plantings here.
Got it. Okay, so that's going to be arrowwood going all the way around the back of the house.
This will be arrowwood, or as just discussed with Jen, if the board.
Yeah, with somebody else. But the other, I'm about to point to my screen here, but the other bit, sort of from the garage over to the deck, is also going to be arrowwood. Okay, I'm just confirming it because it's broken up on the plan. It's not the same.
Yeah, and there's three separate. There's an arrow here that talks about restoration arrowwood, and then there's an arrow right here that talks about restoration arrowwood. And then
See it, okay.
this dark bubbled area here is
Got
proposed
it, yeah.
restoration plantings.
And that's the ones with the three different ones.
The
Okay,
upper right-hand corner, that's a mixture.
got it. Okay, thank you. That's it.
All right, Steve?
I agree with your comments, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm concerned about precedent, but also I think this is a strong alternative opportunity. So I don't have any other questions.
All right. Betsy?
I have no questions.
All right. Courtney?
The limited work, question on the deck, what's the elevation of the deck?
Second floor.
Mm-hmm.
It is
I'm concerned about the 10-foot, lack of a 10-foot limit. Really. Unfortunately, I came on this commission because I had to deal with an unrealistic limit of work and I couldn't get myself around it. And it had to do with doing work with about the same amount of limit of work up on a second floor, and I'm trying to stage it and not impinge on that limit of work. That's a real concern. If it was a ground level deck, I'm not sure I'd have a heart attack about that. But I think they need the 10 feet, and I think they're going to look at that.
Jen, is there anything in the public
I'm
chat?
very serious about that. I can't support this project unless they fix that problem.
Okay, you good?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, what are you thinking?
Make a motion to close the
hearing.
hearing and take it under advisement.
Patton second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's nothing else, Melissa?
So I understand Courtney's frustration, and I'm looking at the plan and I asked Tim, is there any way to go back and push that limit of work on the corner by the deck out any further?
Well, let me be going into the,
I mean, we pushed it out as far as we felt we could push it out and not affect any type of trees. I mean, it was just kind of ground cover and saplings. I mean, again, it's a deck with a sonotube. I believe that elevation in that corner is 18 and the deck elevation is 19.7. So, you know, that's only about 2 feet off the ground over there for the deck elevation.
So, and you mentioned that the sonotubes could go in either by hand or with small machinery. Courtney, if they were to promise by hand, would you feel better about this? If we were to demand that they were to do it by hand?
Let me understand. I thought that you said this is a second story deck. It's basically only 2 feet off the ground.
Well, that property slopes in that back corner over there. Yeah, I can pull it back up. Hold on a second.
I'm just concerned. I think we should adhere to the 10-foot limit. Or you've got to come up with an ironclad methodology that will not impinge on the limit of work. You know, I'm looking at the practical issues of being in the construction business. I'm looking at guys come in there, and sure, I can tell you on a stack of Bibles as a contractor, no one will step over the line. But the reality is people will step over the line because I'm not going to be standing there looking at them every day. So you got to make a limit of work that's realistic that people can adhere to. So fine, you want to close it, I'll vote against it.
Okay.
well, this just went to what you said about if it was closer to the ground. So
Yeah, I mean, there's an
And
option.
if
You
we
can
condition that it
flexible,
was done by
remove the
hand
house. There are other things you can do.
and
But
make the deck smaller.
Yeah, they can shrink the
right.
deck. They can move the garage. They moved the garage. I'm glad you moved the garage.
All right, so we do have a standing motion and second to close the hearing. Anything else? All right, again, we're voting on closing the hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, no.
Hey, but just to say it, you're only voting about closing the hearing, not
Yeah,
necessarily
I know.
approving or disapproving the
That's all right.
project.
I'm being cantankerous.
Yep, Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa?
I'm gonna join with Courtney. Freitag, no.
Steve?
No.
All right, it's 4-2, still passes. We've closed the hearing. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for your time. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay dry. Hopefully it'll be a beautiful weekend this weekend.
Aren't you a dreamer?
Look at the
Thanks,
positive.
Tim.
Always look at the positive.
It's raining again.
All right, next up, John H. Munson and Aaron M. Stein Pine, 88 Jewelers Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, garage, and shed, construct new single-family dwelling with a garage under and a porch, and remove the existing cesspools and install a Title V sewage disposal system. This was a continued hearing, but it hasn't been open, so everyone is available for the quorum. I see Maury is back. Welcome back. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Tom Bunker up to present his project. Hi, Tom.
Excellent. Good evening, Tom.
Hello.
Welcome. You're up, sir.
Thank you. Welcome back from wherever you were, Jen. Good to see you here again. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker of BSS Design, and we prepared this plan, which I will show you. If I may, we'll share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is just a brief overview of where the project is. This is for representing Munson and Pine at 88. This actually is highlighting. I borrowed this from another project we did, but this is 88 is not the highlighted property, but it's this little 1/4 of the property right here. But this just to show you this area here is what's called the ball field that they'll Minot uses, and the yacht club, Minot Yacht Club, is over here. Tennis courts and sand dune up in this area. This whole area here, up across the front of the house, is in velocity flood zone, and there's a 25-foot Falmouth wetland regulation flood zone beyond that. So I have here our plan. Showing there's a velocity flood zone out here, and it segues into an AE elevation 13 flood zone. But we have the Falmouth velocity flood zone in this location, so you can see that all of the porch and half of the house is in the Falmouth velocity flood zone. And there are also 2 other structures on the property. If you've been out there, you see that the site is flat. Flat except for around this house that was built, number 84. There is a 100-foot coastal bank zone B in this location, and this is the A zone for that coastal bank. This coastal bank is actually from this yacht club road. It was not officially constructed, but it was slightly graded so that right along this property line, for some of this property line, there was a change in elevation from up toward this house. And so this coastal bank is emanating from the east side of this house, number 84. Otherwise, if you've been out there, it's flat. flat and very grassy, except for some trees. We have a cedar tree and several other cedar trees in this location of the property. And then there are 2 cedar trees off on the neighbor's property in this location. Of course, as Alyssa pointed out, the foliage is much larger than what we show here. It actually reaches across the property line and pretty much touches the porch. That's a picture that Alyssa had in her staff report. There's a Norway spruce here, and another Norway spruce here, and then another cedar tree in this location. They have limited work going around it. So the idea, this is a RAZE and replace project. And so this is the proposed site plan in this location. Wait a second. So the new structure is being built north on the property. Nothing is in the FEMA flood zone. No part of the structure is in the FEMA flood zone. You can see you can compare the 2 drawings, but of course we have the existing structure and this gray dashed line right here. See, and then the existing house started right here. So in the Falmouth velocity zone, we only have this porch that has no enclosure underneath it. I can show you that's right here. The velocity flood zone is 14, the AE flood zone is 13, the proposed porch is at 16. And this, of course, is to be above the velocity zone, but it's also up that high. So there is a full height underneath the house for parking, the garage. So the slab will be at 7.8, and it's the floor, the first floor is 8.2 feet above that. So it's about a 7.2 foot headroom, which is not a lot, but it's enough for a garage. So the proposed house is here. The existing septic is the septic system. There's a cover here, and there are two cesspools, and it's a little unclear about this one. It almost looked like it was shared by this house and the house on the other lot at one time, but at any rate, not Title V system. So those are being removed, and we have a new system here. I actually went to the Board of Health last week to have this plan required some variances, and so I'm back at the drawing board just earlier this evening to reconfigure that and go back to the Board of Health. I expect this configuration to be, or the revised configuration that I'm working on, to be approved. It also will be going to the ZBA in October. So those other permits should be in hand by next month. The septic system is mounted slightly. Somewhere I have a profile. There it is. So we're 5 feet above groundwater, and the top of the system is at 7.5, which is just shy of what the existing grade is now, and we're filling a foot over it up to 8.5. And then up over the septic tank, it has to be up to 10, and it's 10.5 up at the house, when the existing grade in this location is only 7.9 or 8.2, these spot grades here. So it is a couple of feet of fill over here, just here up to elevation 10, and it slopes back. And I put in the narrative that I was going to file an RDA. I haven't done that yet, to put a little bit of fill mainly along here, so that we can fill on this property, a little bit of fill on the neighbor's property. And I just talked with Todd Stone earlier today, and he said that's fine, but I'll get something in writing before I file the RDA, for a little bit of fill here, so that any water from the 2 properties will just fall along the property line and not flow from one onto the other properties in this location. We're taking down somewhere. I have a list of trees coming down. There are 2 spruce trees and 4 cedar trees to be removed. That's 6 being removed and 7 cedar trees are to be planted as replacements. Plus, we have these areas, 3 areas of bayberry shrubs also along the north and east property lines. So it's a total of 100 square feet in here, here, and here. And the cedar trees go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cedar trees. This cedar tree right here, we will either fill around it gently or lift it with a tree spade and replant it. It's just like 6 inches higher, and I think it's better just to make a shallow well around it. And actually, when I was revising the septic system, we had the septic system only 6 feet from the property line, so I moved it 4 feet further away from the property line, and so that will be more protection for, or less disturbance to the cedar tree here. So I'm more confident that we can just leave that where it is without disturbing it, and there will be more undisturbed soil for these other cedar trees and bayberries to be planted around the edge, because I'm moving the septic system away from these other 2 property lines also. As far as staff report, these are not quite under power lines, but they are proposed somewhat under the power lines. And also, because I'm moving this over, I can move the cedar trees away from there. Of course, I'll point out that the existing cedar, the clump of cedar trees right here, is also under the power lines, and they were quite happy and doing well in that location. The other comment about foliage, tree foliage from Melissa, was about mainly this cedar tree cluster here. And of course, we can cut the branches off at the property line, so it'll be 5 feet. The house is 5.4 feet from the property line, so it'll be 5 feet to work in, which will be enough for scaffolding or staging to put up along. It's only a very short distance where there is interference from the branches of the tree, mainly in this location right in here. And so we can work around that if they're trimmed back, if necessary, to the property line. So I will take this down and take questions. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Jen?
Tom, why are you placing the fill again in front?
Fill is going in the back.
The back, I'm sorry.
Over the septic system.
Yeah.
It's because the system has to be mounted up a little bit to get the 5 feet of clearance.
Okay.
And also over the septic tank and everything.
Okay, that's fine. I have no other questions. It's just
All right.
So one other question. When you're putting the fill on the other property, Tom, to try to make that like channel in between the 2 properties, you're not going to be discharging or directing stormwater onto those private roads, correct?
No, and actually I have to look at the grading again, because I'm changing the septic, moving it another 4 feet away from the property lines. So it definitely won't go into the road, and I might not have to go onto the other property either.
Okay.
I'm going to go to the Board of Health in 2 weeks with the revised plan. But I'll have this done and graded before, and I can send it to you. I mean, for that, there was never going to be water going onto the road or the other property. We're going to be sure of that. But I will
Did
send
you just say you're moving the septic from where you have it shown here?
It's the same, but squishing. I requested variances to the lot lines. It's squishing tighter toward the middle of the lot, moving away from the property lines. It's in the same basic location, but the fill over it will be the same, but the fill will not have to go as close to the property lines as we have it shown now.
Then why not show us that plan?
I was just working on it now, and I'm not done with it yet. I was just calculating to make sure I could do it.
Okay.
It's not done yet. I mean, it's going to be basically the same, but less fill because it's in a smaller area.
Okay. Are you going to be asking us for an administrative approval since it'll
I
be?
I don't think it has. I don't think I need a continuance for this.
Okay.
If you think so, but it's basically the same as actually less fill
Okay.
going
That's
on
fine.
here now.
If we disagree with you, Tom, we'll have you file an amendment.
Okay.
I'm sure that won't be necessary.
Whatever you need.
All right. Thank you. That's all, Tom. I was just trying to understand the fill, and you said a few things, and I was like, huh. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Just one follow-up, Tom. If you are squishing the septic, I think moving those trees slightly more into the property would be great. And I only say that I do recognize that the other trees are doing well. But since these are going to be required trees, I just want them to have their best chance. And so hopefully they're not overly pruned out of the, power lines later on, as we see some as we're driving around that are just sort of gaping holes.
Eversource cutting them all down.
Yeah, but that's great. Thank you.
I'll move them further onto the property.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, commissioner comments. Maury.
Tom, you have your design criteria for your septic at 4-bedroom, but on your plan it says it's a 5-bedroom house.
Yeah, it's a 4-bedroom design system because of the Title V. There, for a house that has more than 8 rooms, you divide by 2 and round down. You design for that. So this has 9 rooms. It has 5 actual bedrooms, but 9 rooms total. We divide by 2 and round down, and we only need to design a 4-bedroom system.
Well, that sounds, I know that's maybe the reg, but I'm looking at this lot. It's about as packed as you could possibly pack it. And I don't see any denitrifying. I don't see, which we know in the future, that's going to be the new thing. The trees that you're going to plant you're going to supposedly squish the septic system with your 4 variances. I don't know how many more you're going to need. And now you're going to squish it so it's a little tighter, and then you're going to move the trees in, and the trees are still going to be basically within, 3 feet of the leach field. I just, I'm looking at this whole project, and I just don't understand why it's not scaled down a little bit. You've maximized, I know it's the same square footage, but one's a shed and one's a garage, not habitable living space in a V zone, or most of it's in the V zone. Usually we like to see all the sign-offs before you come to us: Board of Health, engineering for drainage, zoning. So you're asked, I think in our regs it says all
It must be applied for.
Applied for.
Yes,
and you're very optimistic that you're going to get this in October and as soon as you apply for it, but that's your problem. You're only 1.5 foot. The trees, I don't know where you're going to move them, but we're going to have to see them moved because they're only 1.5 foot off the property line now. And I don't know how you're going to you have no calculations for the runoff on this mounded system because you can't plant anything on it but grass. So in the winter when it's frozen and everything shears off into your little gutter, which is not even a design for your little gutter or drainage ditch between the 2 houses, how many gallons that's going to take. I don't know if the other day when it rained, if that would handle it all, because you can't dump it onto Horton Street. I just think you don't have enough calculations for all the coverage, the runoff, the disturbance, the fill calcs. And it's a lot going on here on a very small lot, with a very big house, with a very big septic system, with a lot of variances.
The septic, the reason I had to go back to Board of Health is that they did not want to approve the variances, so I'm changing it so there will be no variances. It is the same number of bedrooms as are in the house now. They're, as those old houses are, they're very small bedrooms, but it's the same number of bedrooms that there are now. So we're not really increasing anything. It is slightly smaller coverage. Part of it's a standalone garage, and now we have a garage under. And so, yeah, we took the area of the garage and put it into the house, but that's something that everybody will do. It's sandy soil out there, we know, and even that slope is not a very much slope. It's not going to be a lot of runoff. We have the dry wells for the roof itself, and there are no dry wells on the property at the moment.
All right. Again, I just have a lot of concerns with the runoff, and it might be sandy soil, but when it's frozen, it doesn't matter how sandy it is. We don't always have summer here. And then you have an ice sheet going down Horton Street. It's just a lot of runoff. And there's a lot of roof there. There's a lot of land, and there's a lot of impervious surface. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maury's comments are well taken. But I usually think the longer the presentation, the more questions there'll be. So this particular lot the whole area is fascinating. But I would agree with Tom that the runoff is likely to stay on the lot, although only by nature. And of course, the roof runoff being taken care of now. So, yes, there's other variables, but they don't have anything to do with conservation. Thank you.
All right, Melissa.
Thank you, Jamie. And thank you, Tom. I'm a little concerned, Tom, about the new septic design that you're doing. I'm trying to envision where you're trying to move it. Are you basically taking what's basically an upside down bridge, and you're just basically moving it towards the house? Is that what you're doing to it, or are you shrinking it in all ways?
Moving it toward the house, so we have to give up some of the slab that's under the house, because a septic system has to be 10 feet from a slab foundation, and so put that on piers rather than a slab. I have to move it closer to the house to get it away from the property lines. That's correct, what you said.
So I'd almost like to see the new plans before we move forward on this. And then I'm gonna back into Courtney's question from the last guy, from the last application. I mean, I know that the original house is what, 5 feet 3 inches, or 5.3 feet from the property line. This one's going to be 5.4 feet from the property line. What are you going to do for a limit of work? Are you going to be encroaching upon the neighbor's property the whole time?
No, it's 5 feet.
It's 5 feet limit of work.
Yeah. Or 5.4.
A 5.4 foot limit of work, not a 10 foot limit of work.
Correct.
Yeah, it seems out of proportion to where it is. I mean, yeah. I'd really like to see the improved plans before we go any further, or with the new septic plans before we go any further. And maybe some reduction in size, but I guess it's not conservation if it's elevated, is it? Okay. Well, thank you. I'm actually, I guess I'm really just also distracted because it's right next door to a property that we're going to be discussing next week regarding regarding a study and the encroachment of water and movement of sand. And yeah, I guess it's just all getting a little close for me. Okay, well, Yeah, I'd like to see the improved plan or the new septic plan before we go any further. That's it.
Thank you. Betsy,
Tom, how much fill are you bringing for the septic system, to cover the septic system?
You know, that I can give you, if you bear with me, I can give you an estimate. And it's, well,
It's probably best to request a continuance so they can see the revised septic design. It's just
Yeah.
a little,
Yeah, I
gets me a
can't-
little loosey-goosey for me.
I can't give you a good enough estimate right now for that fill.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll wait till you come back, Tom.
I guess I'm coming back.
I guess so.
Nice try, John.
That's all. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks,
all
Tom.
right. Courtney,
Um, I have angst about the limit of work. I'll leave it at that. I don't need to pontificate any further. The other thing I'm thinking about, you're putting in this septic system, and I know it's a real tight lot and you haven't got a lot of room. But there are these regulations coming down the pike that we're all aware of, that we're gonna require upgrading everything to denitrifying systems. So it seems sort of illogical that you're not doing that right now.
I was going to address that when Maury mentioned it, but if you look at my plan, note number, where is it now? I'm looking. Note number 3, locus is not within Mass DEP designated nitrogen sensitive area. So this is actually not in an area that will require a denitrifying septic system because it doesn't contribute to the coastal pond.
In other words, you're saying it's totally out of a watershed?
I didn't say it, DEP said it.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree, but I'm not going to engage in that any further. I think your client should put in a denitrifying system. We have a big problem on the Cape, and you should take advantage of it, and he should take advantage of it, and we would smile sweetly upon him.
Bet you would.
Tom, just out of curiosity, where did you get that information from Mass DEP on this particular lot? Are you saying it's not contributing to Eel River West?
Correct, on the Mass DEP website.
Okay.
It has it all mapped.
Yep. Okay.
It's just going out into Vineyard Sound.
Correct. Yeah.
And when you regrade the property, it won't go into Eel River West either?
Whatever comes from here goes into the groundwater, and it's groundwater doesn't change by changing this amount of change on the surface.
Still going.
Courtney, were you done?
What's that?
Were you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Well, you got cut off by like 3 different people because they're more important than you. All right. Next up, Tom, I have a question, but I think it's a building question. But if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you anyway. You talked about when the septic moves closer to the house, it can't be closer than 10 feet to a slab. But don't you still need frost wall for the slab?
Well, if they're going to be slabs, I have to talk with the architect about that. I mean, that rear would be on concrete piers. So right now, that's what I'm not done with it, but I briefly talked with the architect. I have to see about the detail of what floor, if any, would be. It might just be crushed stone in that first 10 feet of under the house.
But all the structural elements would still have to be on piers or frost wall, correct?
Well, it'd be either on piers. Any real slab like that would would be further, have to be 10 feet from the septic system. And that's where you get the crosswalk.
Okay.
But there's no setback from piers or pile supported structures.
Okay. A question from Mr. Street, I think. All right, Kevin.
This has been a fascinating discussion, but there's no way in hell that I would vote to approve this or pass it on. So I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Smart man. All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat function, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Tom, it sounds to me like we're looking for more information on your drainage calculations and your fill calculations. And while you're only required to apply to the Board of Health, I think it's a general consensus. We'd like to see those revised septic plans. And I don't know what else came out of all that.
Yeah, I have a hearing with the Board of Health on October 2nd. So for a continuance, I could October 4th is there here on October 4th?
Yes.
Is there an opening on that night?
Yes.
May I continue to that night?
He's
Yes,
not going to
you may.
offer anything, Tom.
At the request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to continue this till October 4th.
Bird second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this till October 4th. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Earl Hawks eye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until October 4th. Thank you, Mr. Bunker.
Okay, thank you. Good night and see you then. Or actually, I'll see you next week.
Night, Tom.
See you next week, Tom.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night, Tom.
Good night.
Jen, can you have Laurie send out the updated fall winter schedule, please?
Yes.
Thanks. All right, next up is a request to extend an existing order of conditions. College Light Opera Company, 54 Chappaquiddick Road, Falmouth, Mass. DEP number 25-4467, requesting a 2-year extension. Jen?
Staff recommends granting a 2-year extension. Oop. Whoa.
So moved,
So-
Earl Hawks.
Second, Gladfelter.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second to grant a 2-year extension. Any questions or comments? We're voting on the extension. Oh, Melissa?
Why?
The applicant is in the attendees. I will promote them up as a panelist. They just put a chat in to say if they have any questions. So I'm promoting Mark
Quick-
Pearson up as a
quick answers.
panelist.
2 years is basically doubling, so.
Mr. Pearson, if you could turn on your video and your audio. Thank you, sir. Can you explain what why you were requesting a 2-year extension request, please?
Yes. Hello, everyone. For the record, Mark Pearson, Executive Director, College Light Opera Company. So we were unable to do any work during the summer because of the season. We have 75 college students on campus, and it's just really too much to do construction work while they're here, and we missed that window. So now we're up against our deadline now, and so we're requesting permission to have some more time to complete the project, as we really only have the window of the fall and the spring to do the work.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, everybody good with that?
Yep. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. We're voting on the extension of 2 years. We have a motion and a second. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Fellow Hawks eye.
Melissa?
Right, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have granted a 2-year extension. Next up, vote orders of conditions. Richard M. Dupee, 107 Adamancet Road, Falmouth, Mass.
1 second, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to. Oh, he just left. Okay. Actually, Alyssa, do you want to take this since I was not at the hearing last week?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so 107 Adamancet, this was the property in which the unpermitted retaining feature and patio were discovered in the A zone. The project is proposed to remove those and the fill and return the area back to its natural topography. Restoration was proposed, and I believe the one comment that everyone agreed on was to remove the proposed trees and rather supplement the existing understory with additional shrubs. And we can work with, I think this is Tom, to revise that.
Anything else? All right, what are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we're voting. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Fellow Hawks eye.
Melissa?
Right, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Brian Storms, 0 Little Neck Bars Road, Falmouth, Mass. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. This is the reconstruction of the licensed shared pier off of Little Neck Bars Road. It will be slightly reconfigured widthwise and adding a more of a stair feature towards the land side. We discussed during the hearing that since this is a reconstruction, the 50% light penetrating decking platform rather is required over the existing vegetation and salt marsh. We did make reference to DMF comments. We received an email. They have no comments to add to this order.
Excellent. And I have 2 notes that there'll be a new license required. New Chapter 91. And there's only 2 mooring fields, not 3.
Correct.
Excellent. Melissa?
I'd like to emphasize on the OOCs that we want a perforated surface on that decking. And
It
then
will be required.
yeah, and then we wanted a non-top. Well, we had a long discussion with Raul about that, and we'd like to see a non-toxic coating on the aluminum.
Anything else?
Okay.
You know if they make a non-toxic coating before we make them?
I would
Well,
assume that I would presume that there is one that is marine grade because they make lots of aluminum.
Why don't we just make it marine grade
We'll
coating?
just say marine grade
Okay.
then.
Marine grade coating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just, in my notes, it said non-toxic.
Because you're not going to have a lot of choices. I mean, they're going to make what they make.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we're voting to issue an order of conditions. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Fellow Hawks eye.
Melissa?
Right, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Edgar J. and Rosemary R. McLaughlin, 8 Grassmere Drive, Falmouth, Mass. And I have that the quorum excludes Melissa.
Yes. So this project primarily focused on a degrading retaining wall that borders the, I believe it's a wetland, yep, on the edge of the pond. Several unpermitted features were discovered during this process, and they are proposing mitigation for them, which has been relocated from the water side of the retaining wall, where presently invasives have invaded, and they're now proposed in existing lawn areas. I don't think we had any other comments.
All right. Anything else from anybody?
No.
All right. What are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
Brian, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have issued an order of conditions. Next up is Elizabeth Barry trustee, Elizabeth Barry Family Trust, 111 Lucerne Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. And Courtney, you are not on this quorum
Okay.
or the next. So if you want to take a coffee break, now's the time.
All right.
Ms.
So this-
Bergeron.
Thank you. This filing is primarily to remedy several unpermitted features on the property, some with which after the fact permission can be granted. Some is being removed, like part of the existing patio area. They made several changes to the plan based on our comments. They've upgraded the plan to show everything properly. They fixed their mitigation requirements to match how they are supposed to be calculated, and provided us with our updated plan. They've addressed all of our comments, so I don't have anything else to add.
Excellent. All right. Anything anybody else wants to see? All right. What are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Carlo Hawks second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. If there's nothing further, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Melissa,
Talk aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. With this quorum, we have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Kevin and Kathleen Hanwell, 15 Grove Street, Falmouth, Mass. And again, this quorum excludes Courtney.
Okay.
So this
Ms.
project,
Bergeron.
thank you. This project is to construct a garage, an addition, and a porch, redesigning the driveway area into those driving strips, removing the existing shed and deck. Primarily, they are relocating existing ornamentals in order to place mitigation in the buffer. They're also adding several trees based on previous conversations and making up for an outstanding administrative review. They're also permitting for unpermitted features, mitigating for unpermitted features found on the property during this process. The one thing that stood out to me based on the last hearing is oh wait, I take it back. It was addressed. Never mind.
All right. Anything anybody else wants to see in there? All right. What are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Carlo Hawks second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? All right. We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Earl Hawkseye.
Melissa,
Bartol guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous with this quorum. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, vote amended order of conditions. First up, J. Rao, 124 North Falmouth Highway, Falmouth, Mass. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. This was an amended order of conditions request. The dock has been previously permitted, and due to, I believe, increased prices and delayed efforts on, constructing the dock, they are simply requesting to reduce the size of it.
Oh boy. Somebody's going to want brownie points for that. But they're not getting any. All right. Anything anybody wants to see in there? All right. What are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as eloquently discussed.
Carlo Hawks, second.
Eloquently. All right.
Melissa did a good job.
He always does a good job.
Yeah.
We don't need that other woman hanging around. Hey.
Right.
All right.
Good question. Are we issuing an order of conditions, or are we amending an order of conditions as eloquently discussed?
It's an amended
Issuing an
order of
amended
conditions.
order of conditions.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an amended order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Melissa.
Bartol guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an amended order of conditions. Next motion.
Make a
One
motion
quick
to
thing,
adjourn.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, hold on. Jen.
Just one quick thing. I had scheduled the Ill River discussion for September 27th. I looked at the calendar when I got back, and they're simply too busy to have that discussion that evening. So I am going to postpone that discussion until October 4th. It'll give you a lot more time to discuss it, and it will be at the end of the hearing. And that will not, it'll also, it won't require the harbor master and the chairman of the waterways to sit through a very long meeting just for our discussion. So you have 3 notices of intents on the 4th and just 2 continued. So it's a much better day to have that discussion. My apologies.
Just to point out the obvious, we're going to make sure we don't put any more or too many more continuances on that.
You won't, because our next hearing will be next week, and they won't continue anything out just 1 week. So everything else will next week would be, if they're
Gotcha.
requiring any continuances, they'll be to the 18th.
Okay, again, just pointing out the obvious. Mr. O'Brien.
Yes. Which project was this?
This is the Eel River study that I sent by email.
Yes.
So if anybody needs it printed out, because I know it's a very large document to read on your computers.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, it's in your packet. Melissa, I gave you one already, I believe. If ever anybody else would like it printed out, let me know and I'll print them out for you and put them in your packets.
Thank you.
Any takers, Jamie, Kevin, Maury,
No, I'm
Courtney?
good.
No, good.
I would like one in my packet.
Yeah, Kevin, do you
Thank
want a
you.
hard copy or are you going to read it on the computer?
I'm about halfway through.
Okay, so all right, I'll
Maybe
get you
I'll
one,
drink
Maury.
a little,
Okay,
All right. Melissa.
and I'll let Greg Fraser know tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is he going to
first,
be the
thank
only
you.
one?
I think the chairman of the Waterways Committee would like to attend, as there might be 1 or 2 people that have been following the progress of this, people that live right north of Minot Yacht Club. So
But Greg will be giving a presentation, as it were.
I don't think we'll be getting a presentation. They just want to discuss it, but I'll see if Greg will say a few words.
Maybe outline what they think would be the best
Correct.
discussion points.
Okay.
Okay. Melissa's hand is going to fall off, so let's have
No,
her
it's
next.
not. I'm just holding up fingers. I was just wondering if you mentioned, Jen, that it would be at the end of the meeting. Instead of leaving it hanging open, would it be wiser for us to do it at the beginning of the meeting and
No,
then limit it?
no.
No? Okay,
Chairman has requested it be placed at the end of the meeting.
okay, just wondering.
Yep.
Thanks.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thanks for the printout.
All right. Anything else? Other business?
No.
Motion, who wants it?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second, Pat.
Rod Filter, aye.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Bye, Tug, aye.
That night.
It is unanimous. We have adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good
Good
night,
night,
everyone.
everyone.
Night, everybody.
Have a
Good
good
night,
week.
everyone.